Good evening, everyone. Take a deep breath. Now, I want you to look back at the beginning of that journey, that 7-day stretch. Where were you? You were defined by a chemical signature, the constant loop of thought and feeling that kept you tethered to a familiar past. Depression, in its simplest form, is an addiction. It's an addiction to a set of negative emotions that your body, your magnificent programmable servant, has memorized. Your thoughts generate the chemicals of depression, and your body signals back demanding more. You were literally living chemically in your past, and the moment you woke up, your biology told you exactly what was going to happen that day. The same thing as yesterday. This is where your transformation begins, by truly understanding what held you hostage. What was the anchor that chained you to that depressed state? It wasn't your circumstances, it was your chemical signature. When you look back at that time, the beginning of your 7-day commitment, you were fundamentally defined by the residue of memory. Every emotion you felt, the sadness, the frustration, the feeling of lack, was simply the end product of a thought you were thinking, a memory you were rehashing, a story you kept telling yourself. This is pure measurable neuroscience. Your brain creates a thought, that thought generates a specific neuropeptide, and your body bathes itself in that chemical. The tragedy is that your magnificent body, which is programmed to serve your will, memorizes this chemical formula. It says, this is the feeling of John or Jane being depressed, and it begins to anticipate and demand those chemicals. Your body literally becomes the mind, the subconscious mind running the program automatically. You are living in an involuntary emotional loop. A single thought about a past failure or a perceived limitation would trigger the chemical release of sadness, and that rush of sadness would signal back to the brain to think more thoughts that made you sad. Thought, feeling, thought, feeling. This is the cycle where the past becomes your future. When you are in this loop, you are essentially living in survival mode. You are producing the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline. Your focus is narrowed, you are expecting the worst, and you are literally burning up energy fighting ghosts of the past. If you constantly feel fear, your body believes it is being chased by a predator. And guess what? You can't create $37,000 when your biology is convinced it needs to run or hide. The familiar feeling of depression wasn't an identity. It was a chemical addiction to a neurological pattern. And the moment you woke up in the morning, your body, like any good addict, demanded its fix. It wanted the familiar rush of inadequacy, the predictable dose of self-pity, because that chemical landscape felt normal, it felt like home. Your environment, your job, your financial history, those external factors only commanded you because you allowed them to dictate your internal state. If you react to the same people and the same problems the same way every day, you are literally recreating your past every day. The challenge of the first 24 hours of those 7 days was simply to become aware of this involuntary program, to catch the thought before it generated the emotion, to feel the emotional surge and refuse to let it drag you back to the familiar story. This brings us to the second most critical step, the actual quantum leap that took place in those 7 days, the decision to become nobody. You see, once you understand that your body is chemically addicted to the past, the next logical realization is that you, your consciousness, must be greater than your body's demands. True change does not happen when you are in comfort. It happens at the moment of discomfort, in the profound friction between the old self that wants to survive and the new self that wants to thrive. You made a fact and conscious choice to break the energetic and chemical bonds of the old self. The decision you made was not simply to try to feel better. That's a transactional change. The decision you made was to break free from the neurological and chemical signature of the person who was depressed and struggling financially. You consciously chose to be bigger than your environment, which was screaming lack. You chose to be bigger than your body, which was craving the chemical cocktail of inadequacy. And you chose to be bigger than time, refusing to believe that your future must be a linear extension of your painful past. This is the moment of supreme will. To become nobody is the ultimate sacrifice. It means sacrificing the familiar identity that you have curated over years. The you who was depressed, the one with the familiar complaints, the predictable thoughts, the friends who knew your problems, that person has to die. Why? Because you cannot create a new reality from the personality of the old one. The old personality is only defined by the events of the past, and if you hold on to it, you will only recreate more of the same events. So, in that meditation, in that focused commitment, you made the courageous decision to unmemorize those emotions and to leave that old identity behind. You stepped into the most terrifying yet most generative place possible, the unknown. The unknown is the greatest opportunity. It's the void, the quantum field, the place where all potentials exist simultaneously. When you step out of the chemical structure of your familiar self, you are literally standing in pure potentiality. You are nobody, in no place, in no time. This is where the magic happens because you are no longer separate from the field of infinite possibilities. Most people get to this edge. They feel the withdrawal symptoms of the old chemical self screaming for its fix. They feel the anxiety of the unknown future and they retreat, running back to the comfort of their predictable misery. But you held the line for 7 days. You stayed in that space where the body was demanding the past and the mind was committed to the future. You used your will, that spark of the divine within you, to hold the thought of your new destiny, overriding the body's subconscious program. This act of breaking the emotional chain, of committing to an internal reality that was greater than the external, messy environment, is the moment your destiny changed. It wasn't the $37,000 you decided on, it was the elevation of your consciousness, the conscious decision to shed the old addictive self that allowed the future to find you. That decision on day one was the single most powerful act of creation you have ever performed. This is where most people falter. They wait for an external event to change how they feel, saying, when I have the $37,000, then I'll feel worthy. But the secret of creation is that you must feel the future now, and this decision to become nobody created the space for that new feeling to enter. In those daily practices, you didn't just sit, you became a scientist in your own life. You were no longer just thinking from your old self. You began to think as your new self. How? You started with the heart. You slowed down, breathing deeply, creating coherence between your heart and your brain. When the heart and the brain are in rhythmic, synchronized communication, you move out of survival mode and into creation mode. You are no longer separate, you are whole. This is where the transformation moves from philosophy to pure, measurable technology. You've done the hard work of the decision to become nobody. You've separated your consciousness from the chemical identity of the past. Now, you need to install the operating system of the future. This requires heart and brain coherence. Think about your brain when you were struggling, when you were depressed. Your brain waves were likely erratic, spiking in high, choppy, high beta frequencies. This is a stressed, overanalyzing brain, a brain that is incoherently scattering its energy everywhere, trying to process every possible threat in the external environment. When your brain is incoherent, it is disorganized, and the signal you are broadcasting into the quantum field is weak and mixed. It's like static on a radio. The moment you settled into that meditation, you began the technical process of shifting that frequency. You moved from the choppy waters of high beta into the smooth rhythmic waves of alpha and theta. This is the state where the inner world becomes more real than the outer world. But a coherent brain alone is not enough. You must pair it with the greatest energetic broadcast system in your body, your heart. The heart generates an electromagnetic field that is magnitudes stronger than the brain's, up to 5,000 times stronger magnetically. The key to coherence is the emotion. You slowed your breath, focusing your attention on your heart. Space. You began to inhale deeply and exhale slowly, rhythmically. This disciplined breath work signals safety to your entire system, pulling you out of the sympathetic nervous system, fight or flight, and into the parasympathetic rest and digest. As this rhythm stabilized, you moved beyond just calm and began to introduce an elevated emotion: gratitude, appreciation, love, or wholeness. This is the critical step. When you feel a high frequency emotion like gratitude, your heart instantly shifts from a chaotic rhythm to a smooth sine wave like rhythm coherence. When the coherent brain, the thought, and the coherent heart, the feeling align, they amplify each other. Your thoughts, your specific intention for the $37,000 become integrated with the emotional energy of your heart. The moment your heart and brain become coherent, they create a powerful, unified, organized electromagnetic field. This field surrounds your body in a toroidal pattern, energy moving out from the heart, looping back in. This field is the signal you are broadcasting into the quantum field of potentiality. It's a clean, strong, focused signal. You are no longer broadcasting the static of lack and depression. You are broadcasting the frequency of abundance and worthiness. The work of those 7 days was the systematic practice of aligning this thought and feeling, becoming a living magnet for your new future. This pairing is non-negotiable because an intention without elevated emotion is just a weak thought, and an elevated emotion without clear intention is just a fuzzy feeling. This organized energy prepares the field for the next step, which is the precise articulation of what you are calling in. You've established heart and brain coherence. Now, what do you do with that magnificent amplified field? This brings us to the next vital step, which is defining the future potential. This is where the physics of creation takes over. You didn't just casually hope for money. You precisely articulated an intention: $37,000 in your bank account. Why the number? Because specificity is the language of the quantum field. You must make your future so clear that it becomes a reality you can taste, see, and feel within your inner world. If your intention is vague, the signal you send out is equally vague, and the field has nothing specific to return to you. Your intention, the thought, is the electrical signal. It defines the destination, the blueprint, the conscious command. But here's the crucial element that turns the blueprint into a manifest reality: the elevated emotion. An intention without an elevated emotion is just a mental wish. It has no magnetic pull. You must critically attach a high-level, elevated emotion to that specific intention before the external event occurs. This elevated feeling, gratitude, joy, freedom, wholeness, is the magnetic signal. The money, the $37,000, was not the goal. It was the symbol of the emotion you craved. You weren't asking the universe for 37,000 units of currency. You were demanding 37,000 units of financial freedom, security, and worthiness. You must move from the emotion of lack, which is a low-frequency broadcast, to the emotion of having, which is a high-frequency broadcast. This is the merger of mind and matter. Your coherent brain holds the clear thought, the electrical charge, and your coherent heart generates the profound feeling, the magnetic charge. When you combine a clear intention, what you want, with an elevated emotion, how it will feel when you have it, you create an electromagnetic signature that is the exact frequency of your desired future. You were no longer waiting for the money to feel grateful. You chose to feel grateful first. You rehearsed the feeling of receiving that $37,000 every day, not as a desperate plea, but as a statement of certainty. You became so grateful for the future reality that hasn't yet happened that your body began to live in that future emotionally. This rehearsal is what rewires the brain. Every time you hold that image of the bank account balance and flood your body with the emotion of gratitude, you are installing new neural networks. You are literally signaling to your genes to express new information. You are telling your body, this is my new chemical state. This is my new emotional reality. This conscious act of combining thought and feeling, the mind thinking, the heart feeling, is the most potent form of creation because you are becoming a magnet in the quantum field. You are matching the frequency of one of the infinite potential realities that already exists in the unseen realm. The challenge wasn't in doing anything physical yet. The challenge was in staying in that elevated emotional state, resisting the urge to return to the familiar chemicals of depression and doubt, because the moment you stop feeling the feeling, you cease the magnetic broadcast. You held that frequency for 7 solid days, refusing to let the external environment dictate your internal state. We now arrive at the fulcrum of your 7-day transformation, living in the present moment. You've done the hardest work. You've broken the addiction to the past, and you've created a coherent signal of the future. But there is a point of potential failure, and that point is time. Most people live in predictable time. They are either ruminating on the past, the known, which causes guilt and depression, or they are anticipating the future, the known outcome they desire, which causes anxiety and impatience. Both states pull you out of the only place where creation is physically possible, the generous, limitless present moment. The moment you start checking your bank account or wondering when the $37,000 will arrive, you have left the creative state. You have fallen back into separation and lack because you are telling the universe, I don't have it now. This immediate demand for external evidence is the number one self-sabotage mechanism. Why? Because checking for the result means you stopped feeling the elevated emotion of the already achieved reality. The feeling is the magnetic signature. When you stop feeling that gratitude or freedom, you stop broadcasting the signal. You fall back into the chemical familiarities of the old self, and your body begins to secrete those old stress hormones once again. Cortisol is the chemical signature of being stuck in the past or being fearful of the future. You cannot create from a state of emergency. The discipline you developed over those 7 days was the discipline of staying present. Every time a memory of your past financial struggle tried to pull you back, you used your will to return to the heart space and the feeling of wholeness. Every time the thought of how the $37,000 would show up tried to pull you forward, you reminded yourself, it is done. This is the ultimate act of trust and surrender. You are saying to the field, my intention is clear, my heart is coherent, and I trust that the unseen consciousness will organize the event in a way that is perfect for me, a way that will surprise and amaze me. The how, the when, and the where are not your concern. Your only job is to become the new personality. In the present moment, where you are nobody, in no place, and in no time, you are tapping into the 0-point field. You are moving into unpredictable time. This state of being outside the linear constraints of the clock is where true energetic transfer happens. When you successfully elevate your emotion and hold that coherence, you are shifting your biological state, but you are also shifting the energy around your body. You become so connected, so whole, so grateful that you literally forget yourself, you lose time. You aren't doing the meditation to get to the future. You are doing the meditation because the meditation itself is the future. The feeling of abundance and freedom is what the $37,000 was supposed to bring, and you are feeling it now. This profound acceptance of the present, this willingness to sit in the joy of now without demanding external proof, is what allowed the unfolding to begin. This is the moment when the quantum field, which holds all potential realities in a wave state, starts to pay attention to your unwavering, organized signal. You are no longer trying to force the money. You are becoming the vibrational match for the money. By refusing to return to the past and refusing to anticipate the future, you allowed the synchronicity to occur. This sustained internal state of having, of wholeness, is the bridge from the unseen realm to the material world. It is the moment you become so internally aligned that the external world must begin to reorganize itself to match your inner shift. You were dedicated. You were disciplined. You held the line for 7 days, consistently choosing the elevated emotional state over the biological, addiction of the past, and now we reach the final, undeniable proof that consciousness creates reality, the evidence of change. This is where the unseen world, the quantum world of energy and potential, is forced to yield to your sustained internal effort. The moment the $37,000 landed in your bank account was not a random coincidence. It was the exact measurable consequence of your shift in internal energy. For 7 days, you were broadcasting a clear, coherent electromagnetic signal, the thought of the money coupled with the elevated emotion of gratitude. The quantum field holds every possibility, including the reality where you are financially abundant as a wave of probability. Your job was to become the observer whose focused energy collapses that wave into physical reality. When the new thought and the new emotion truly merge to form a new personality, your biology has no choice but to catch up. Your genes, which are responsive to your environment, were initially expressing the chemical signature of depression and lack, the external environment. But when you consistently shifted your internal environment through coherent meditation, you were sending a new instruction set. You were demanding a new expression of life. Your body stopped producing the stress chemicals of survival and started producing the hormones of creation, like dopamine, oxytocin, and elevated endorphins. This biological shift is the physical evidence that you have successfully changed your identity on a cellular level. You became the new personality first, and the external reality, the bank balance, was simply the delayed reflection of that internal shift. You are not a victim of your genes, you are the conductor of your genetic expression. The $37,000 was the feedback loop. The universe was saying, we have matched your frequency. We have taken the wave of probability that you chose and delivered it as a particle of experience. This event manifested with ease and grace, perhaps through an unexpected client. A debt suddenly cleared, or a timely investment return, a result that felt entirely unforced. You didn't hustle from a place of fear, you attracted from a place of wholeness. The beauty of this process is that the manner of its arrival is irrelevant. The focus remains on the internal state. By refusing to check for the money, you maintain the elevated frequency long enough for the field to do its work. If you had stopped feeling grateful on day 5 and fallen back into impatience, the magnetic signal would have ceased, and the wave would have returned to pure potentiality. But you held the vibration. You maintained the coherence. And because your internal world became an undeniable, sustained reality, the external world had no choice but to reorganize itself to mirror that truth. This is the scientific proof that you are not simply thinking, but you are creating with every coherent heartbeat and focused intention. This event, the physical manifestation, is now a new memory that generates a new elevated chemical signature, reinforcing your belief in your own creative power. This is the moment you moved from the student to the master, proving that your inner state is the primary cause, and the external world is merely the effect. And now we arrive at the culmination of the 7 days, the unstoppable creator. The money, the $37,000 that manifested in your bank account, that external evidence, was never the final goal. If you think the transformation was about the money, you have missed the entire lesson. The financial increase was simply the side effect, the natural conclusion of an inner transformation that moved you from a chemical victim to an intentional sovereign. The true profound realization is this: the transformation was about the freedom to create any reality, proving beyond the shadow of a doubt that you are a powerful, coherent consciousness capable of bending reality to your will. When you review the path from addiction to the past to the evidence of change, you realize you didn't get lucky. You became lucky. You changed your internal structure so fundamentally that luck, synchronicity, and fortune became your new predictable reality. You established a new baseline. This shift moves beyond mere manifestation and enters the realm of mastery. You have proven the formula that thought is the electrical charge and feeling is the magnetic charge. And when you achieve heart and brain coherence, you are a measurable energetic broadcast. The difference between the person who started the challenge and the person who saw the $37,000 land is not external circumstances. It's an entirely new personality. The old self, the one addicted to suffering, the one defined by lack, is neurologically dismantled and chemically unmemorized. The stress hormones are gone, replaced by the elevated chemicals of creativity and wholeness. You are no longer living in survival mode. You are operating from a state of sustained creation mode. This is the ultimate freedom. The moment you stopped living in the present moment for the purpose of getting the money and simply lived in the present moment for the joy of being that new, elevated personality, you became dangerous, dangerously creative. You realize that the feeling of financial freedom isn't tied to the physical numbers. It's an internal state you can generate at will. This means you are no longer dependent on the external environment to tell you how to feel. You are no longer waiting for the effect to feel the cause gratitude and freedom. You became the cause. This is the metabolic shift of the master creator. You now have empirical evidence that when you set a clear intention in defining the future potential and marry it to the elevated emotion, the universe must respond. You have experienced the quantum collapse with your own senses. This final stage solidifies your identity as the unstoppable creator. You are no longer someone who believes in the power of the mind. You are someone who knows it because you have repeated the process and witnessed the evidence of change. This knowing is recorded in your cells, in your new emotional repertoire, and in the sheer confidence of your presence. The next goal you set, whether it's a new relationship, perfect health, or a global enterprise, is no longer a hopeful desire. It is a foregone conclusion. The only variable that ever mattered was your internal state, and you have mastered the ability to sustain coherence long enough for reality to catch up. The $37,000 was your first proof of concept, your graduation certificate. You transcended the belief that things happen to you and stepped into the absolute truth that things happen through you. You are now a being of pure, coherent energy, constantly broadcasting a signal of unlimited potentiality, ready to observe and collapse the next wave of probability that serves your highest vision for the future. The field is ready. The energy is set. The power is yours. What you achieved in those 7 days wasn't a one-off miracle. It was the establishment of a new permanent baseline. You didn't just manifest $37,000. You proved the inviolable law of this universe. Your internal state dictates your external reality. Review the journey. You faced the addiction to the past, not with shame, but with the scientific awareness that you were chemically programmed. You then enacted the decision to become nobody, bravely sacrificing the familiar identity of suffering to step into the terrifying potential of the unknown. That courageous void allowed you to technically install a new future through heart and brain coherence, aligning your electromagnetic field to become an organized broadcaster. With a clear signal set by defining the future potential, intention coupled with elevated emotion, your only remaining challenge was to master the now by living in the present moment, refusing to surrender your elevated frequency to the tyranny of time or environment. This sustained coherence forced the physical universe to respond, leading to the evidence of change, where the wave of potential collapsed into the particle of your new bank balance. But the final and most powerful realization of the unstoppable creator is that the money is now merely a data point. The true wealth is the knowing, the unshakable confidence that you possess the mechanism for infinite creation. You have demonstrated that you are not just a mind, but a coherent consciousness capable of generating your own chemical reality, and by extension, your own material destiny. You transcended victimhood and claimed sovereignty over your personal reality. Now, the next creation begins from this place of absolute knowing and elevated energy.